Ladies and gentlemen, today we bring you a story that is as gripping as it is heartbreaking. A tale of talent, tragedy, and the untold truths behind one of Hollywood's most versatile actors, Ross Martin. This is not just a story about fame. It's about the man behind the disguises, the struggles behind the smiles, and the shocking reality of what really happened to him. So, sit back and let us take you on a journey through the life and legacy of Ross Martin, a journey that will leave you both inspired and deeply moved. It was July 3rd, 1981, a day that started like any other for Ross Martin. He was at the San Vicente Tennis Ranch in Ramona, California, doing what he loved, playing tennis. But this wasn't just a casual game. For Ross, tennis was more than a sport. It was a symbol of his resilience. You see, Ross had survived a near-fatal heart attack in 1968, and this was his way of proving to himself and the world that he was still strong, still capable. But on that fateful day, his heart gave out. Eyewitnesses recall him feeling dizzy, staggering toward the clubhouse, and collapsing just a few feet from the entrance. His wife, Olavi, was just 20 feet away. She screamed for help, but despite the efforts of paramedics, Ross was gone. The official cause of death: a complete blockage of the left anterior descending artery, often called the widowmaker. But the truth behind his death goes much deeper than a medical report. This is the story of a man who gave everything to his craft, only to be let down by the very industry he helped build. Ross Martin was born Martin Rosenblatt on March 22, 1920, in Grodek, Poland. His family was part of the Polish Jewish community that faced growing instability and anti-Semitism after World War I. Seeking a safer life, the Rosenblatts made the difficult decision to leave everything behind and start over in America. Ross was just an infant when they boarded the steamship New York in Danzig, bound for Ellis Island. The journey was grueling, but it was just the beginning of a life filled with challenges and triumphs. Once in America, the family settled in the Bronx, a neighborhood teeming with immigrants, all striving for a better future. It was here that Ross developed his love for languages. By the time he learned English, he was already fluent in Polish, Yiddish, and Russian. Later, he would add French, Spanish, and Italian to his repertoire. This gift for languages would become one of his greatest strengths, helping him in his acting career and allowing him to bring authenticity to every role he played. Ross was not just talented, he was brilliant. He excelled in school, graduating magna cum laude from City College of New York and earning a law degree from George Washington University. But Ross had a different calling. Instead of pursuing a stable career in law, he chose acting, a decision that would define his life. In the 1940s, he teamed up with Bernie West to form a comedy duo called Ross and West. They performed in vaudeville and nightclubs across upstate New York, mixing fast-paced jokes with physical comedy. Crowds loved them, and Ross quickly gained a reputation as a comedic genius. But comedy was just the beginning. Ross wanted more. He wanted to explore every facet of entertainment, and that's exactly what he did. By 1953, Ross was on Broadway, starring in Hazel Flag, a musical satire based on the 1937 film Nothing Sacred. His performance earned him critical acclaim and opened doors to radio and television. In the late 1940s and early 1950s, Ross became a well-known voice on radio programs like Cavalcade of America and Dimension X. His ability to switch between accents and characters was unparalleled, and it wasn't long before Hollywood came calling. In 1955, Ross made his film debut in Conquest of Space, a science fiction epic about humanity's first journey to Mars. Though the film wasn't a major hit, it marked the beginning of a Hollywood career that would span nearly 3 decades. Ross's big break came in 1959 when he was cast as Andamo in Mr. Lucky, a CBS series created by Blake Edwards. Andamo was a quick-witted gunrunner and sidekick to John Vivian's smooth-talking gambler. The show was set on a floating casino, giving it a mix of adventure and danger. Ross's dry humor and impeccable timing made Andamo a standout character, but it was his role as Garland Red Lynch in Experiment in Terror, 1962, that truly showcased his range. Lynch was an asthmatic sociopath who terrorized bank teller Kelly Sherwood, played by Lee Remick. Ross studied a childhood friend with asthma to perfect Lynch's eerie, labored breathing. The result was a performance so chilling that critics compared it to Anthony Perkins's Norman Bates in Psycho. Ross earned a Golden Globe nomination for the role, but it came at a cost. Hollywood began to see him as a villain, and leading roles became harder to come by. Despite the setbacks, Ross continued to shine. In 1965, he played Baron Rolf von Stupper in The Great Race, a comedic villain who stole every scene he was in. The film, directed by Blake Edwards, starred Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis, but it was Ross who left audiences laughing with his impeccable comedic timing. The movie's famous pie fight scene, which used over 4,000 pies, became a highlight of his career. But Ross's most iconic role was yet to come. In 1965, Ross was cast as Artemis Gordon in The Wild Wild West, a role that would define his career. Artemis wasn't just a sidekick. He was a genius with gadgets, a master of espionage, and one of the best disguise artists television had ever seen. Ross designed more than 90% of his own disguises, creating characters so convincing that even his co-star, Robert Conrad, often didn't recognize him until the cameras were rolling. From a hunched-over gravedigger with rotting teeth to a flamboyant French magician, Ross's transformations were nothing short of extraordinary. But the role came with its own set of challenges. In 1968, while filming The Wild Wild West, Ross suffered a near-fatal heart attack. Doctors found a 95% blockage in his left coronary artery. Against all odds, Ross recovered and returned to finish the series, but Hollywood never saw him the same way again. The industry labeled him a high risk, and major networks backed away. CBS cancelled The Wild Wild West in 1969, citing concerns about TV violence, and Ross struggled to find leading roles. Despite his talent, he was relegated to guest appearances, earning a fraction of what he once made. But Ross never stopped working. Between 1970 and 1981, he booked 87 guest roles, proving time and again that he was a force to be reckoned with. His performance as Dale Kingston in Columbo, suitable for framing, 1971, earned him an Emmy nomination, but even that wasn't enough to revive his career. Ross's personal life was just as dramatic as his roles. He married Muriel Weiss in 1941, and they had a daughter, Phyllis. But the strain of his career took a toll on their marriage, and they separated in the late 1950s. When Muriel was diagnosed with breast cancer in 1962, Ross quietly paid for her treatment. She passed away in 1965, and Ross never forgave himself for not being there when she needed him most. In 1967, he married Olavi Lucille Parsons, who became his rock through his health struggles. She smuggled oxygen tanks onto the Wild Wild West sets and negotiated with CBS to reduce his workload. Their love story was one of resilience and devotion, but it was not without its challenges. On July 3, 1981, Ross Martin's journey came to an end. His death was a tragic reminder of the fragility of life, but his legacy lives on. Fans still visit his grave at Mount Sinai Memorial Park, leaving tiny violins as a tribute to his most famous role. Ross Martin was more than an actor. He was a master of his craft, a man who could make you laugh, terrify you, and break your heart, all in the same scene. Hollywood may have forgotten him, but we never will. Before we conclude, if you've been captivated by this story, don't forget to subscribe for more untold tales of Hollywood's greatest stars. And if you're already subscribed, thank you for being part of our journey. Ross Martin's story is a reminder that behind every great performance is a person with dreams, struggles, and a story worth telling. Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and remember, the truth is always worth uncovering.